Hello there, Ado from Resource Investment Media here. Today we're going to talk about a age-old question, which is how much silver is there in a Tesla? And obviously you understand that the phrase age-old is somewhat sarcastically meant here, since the Teslas are not by any stretch of the imagination an age-old vehicle that has existed for decennia, but it is something rather new, and the electric vehicle industry in itself, its silver usage perhaps can be used as a rather good illustration in regards to why the silver industry might have a rather bright future, and why you as an investor and a speculator perhaps should pay attention to the silver industry. So I guess first what you can ask yourself is, what parts of a Tesla or an electric vehicle would even be silver heavy or silver heavy in usage? And essentially you can, I should say, summarize it into three parts. That is a bit simplistical because there are other aspects of the car that also will have silver usage, but the main bulk of the silver usage will be within the electric engine, the battery pack, and the battery management system. And these are the three parts that will differentiate primarily from a combustion engine based car, and where you will find the higher silver usage rate in actual electrical cars compared to the traditional combustion engine car. Now, how much silver does an actual electrical vehicle use? And on a gram based, you can say that according to most estimations, it's anywhere between 25 to 30 grams in the low, all the way up towards 50, 60. Which would be a 40 to 60% increase compared to a regular combustion engine vehicle. Now, why is that important? Well, first of all, it's important because it estimates that you're going to need 90 million ounces of silver before 2025 in order to increase the electrical vehicle production. And I actually think that's even from a modest increase, or even from current outflow of demand. So you're kind of poised to see a 90 million ounces increase in silver before 2025. Okay, what does that mean more concretely to the investor and the speculator? What is that in regards to the total silver market? Well, you could say it's roughly 10% of annual production, of current annual production, that will be needed towards this industrial capacity within electrical vehicles. Okay, now that we've established that, where is that silver going to come from? Well, obviously it's going to have to be mined. It's going to have to come from the mines. And when you're looking at how thin the physical silver market is, kind of realize that 90 million ounces in itself can move price rather rapidly during the right conditions. So silver is poised, because of the electrical vehicle industry, to see its industrial use case increase. Many of you will not know this, but silver actually is an element that leads electricity even better than copper. Copper is just a lot cheaper. That's why you will find it in most, I should say, grids and electrical systems. But when you want finite precision and performance, you kind of tend to go with silver as the electric component. That is why electrical vehicles will be rather silver heavy compared to a combustion, a engine-based vehicle. Now, when we establish that for the investor and the speculator, when we establish for you that silver in itself has an industrial use case that is poised to increase, we don't know exactly how high this increase is going to be, because we have an exponentiality factor, which means that electric vehicles within the coming years could take off rather rapidly. One thing that could drive that is increased gas prices. I think regardless of where you are in the world, you have noticed that gas has become quite a bit more expensive. In some countries, gas price has even doubled just in the recent year or two. So I think some people are very humbled by the gas price increase, and they're definitely looking at electrical vehicles from another perspective than what they did before. Doesn't mean that all vehicles will be electric, but it's definitely been a somewhat good marketing campaign for electric vehicles, the recent increase in gas prices. So when we've established the usage of silver within electrical vehicles, and I guess we should then go into the specific one of Teslas. How much does a Tesla use of silver compared to other electric vehicles? And here's the interesting fact, and I spent quite a bit of time searching this. You can't be sure. they don't want to tell you. And I should say, I guess it's pretty natural to not want to say that, because it can be seen as a corporate secret. Why would you want everyone to know your production intake of raw materials? It could perhaps put you in a insufficient position in the future when it comes to acquiring these components, if people know your exact usage rate and your exact dependency on them. So one interesting part about the silver industry is that big users, industrial users of it, will tend to try their utmost in order to not tell you exactly how much silver they need, which you can view from two perspectives. You could just view it as natural good management of corporate, corporate procedures, of not sharing them to the public when not necessary, or you can also view it as a worrisome position when it comes to their potential ability to acquire the metal in the future. Okay, now we established that the silver industry is poised for a good time in regards to its industrial use case within electrical vehicles. Is there another industry we see that perhaps has a capacity to exponentially increase, that has a high silver usage rate? Well, solar panels. Many of you will not know this, but a solar panel on average will use roughly 0.6 ounces of silver. While that may sound very, very small, the fact that solar panels are being so widely distributed means that this need exceeds 100 million ounces annually. And with the future increase of solar panels, you can question yourself once again, well, what if solar panels double just from their current rate today? And once again, the price of other electricity forms like oil and gas are definitely a good marketing campaign for solar. And for many people I can just see where I live around are trying to put solar panels on their roofs, and even businesses are doing it. So you don't have to go far away from your close proximity to see this increase. Okay, so what if that doubles? Well, that means another 100 million ounces annually. Where are we going to get those from? Once again, it's the miners. But when you realize many silver miners are actually thin in silver. And what do I mean by that statement? What does it exactly curtail? Well, the simple answer is that many silver miners produce silver as a byproduct of other mines. You have very few pure silver plays, meaning that even if the price of silver went up, the business in itself is not focused on exploring and finding new silver assets per se. They're more a byproduct of other exploration. So the answer in terms of supply could be much more stagnant and slow than what you would expect, which once again, as the speculator and the investor, is interesting, because that means that a price increase can be met by very, very high margins by the miners, rather than an immediate increase in production. And that gives way to an interesting sector and an interesting set of circumstances that are, I like to use the expression, that are delicious from an investor's standpoint. And finally, is there a third aspect we have of the silver industry that could perhaps be interesting or something to notice for us? And that is the silver paper market. And this, I guess, is the one that will, at least for me, blows my mind most when it comes to the silver industry. And that is that the silver paper market is approximately 250 times the physical market. This is an accident waiting to happen. And I understand that could be a strong statement. But whenever you have a paper market that to that extent exceeds the physical, you can see strange things happen. You can start seeing the physical actually break away from the paper market, simply because if people actually say, and there's so few people that need to say it considering the leverage rate, yeah, this paper is interesting, but I kind of like real silver. I'm not interested in holding this paper anymore. I want the actual commodity. There is no way to meet those requests without price being the settlement factor. Meaning there is a way to meet them, but the question is at which price? And considering how thin the physical market is, how big the paper market is, and in general the market capitalization of silver as a whole, this is why some people say that you could just see an explosion in silver one day, where price hasn't merely increased 5-10%, but you've perhaps seen multiples of the current price in a very short period of time, simply because the paper market has broken. Now, people have been saying this for quite a while and it hasn't matured, but it doesn't make the underlying statement any less correct simply because it hasn't happened. Whenever you have a paper market that is that big in comparison to the physical one, I would say you're asking for trouble. You're asking for trouble because essentially everyone's just sitting and trading promises with each other, and nobody's actually got what they promised. And once stuff gets real, perhaps once people start doubting the other party, once counterparty risk becomes a real risk once again, and we are perhaps headed into an environment like that, then all of a sudden the game's up for a lot of people. So that's what a lot of people who are betting big on silver are estimating is going to happen. And I guess to give my conclusion of not just the question, how much silver is there in a Tesla, that answer would be quite simple. A lot, but I don't know exactly how much. And seemingly nobody else does either, exactly, which is interesting. But a wider conclusion on the silver market would be that it's a combination of industrial use case, the fact that it is a precious metal that people hold from a store of value perspective, and the fact that the paper market doesn't make any sense in size compared to the physical. Means that here, as an investor and a speculator, you have many circumstances that are perfectly aligned to see a rather large future increase in this. Now, one thing that's always tricky in life is timing and recession risk. And these things can keep scenarios from maturing from a lot longer time perspective than what you would think. But nonetheless, the aspect of these things combined is, to say the least, very interesting. And if you, as an investor or speculator, have a bit of spare time to put into any market, I would put silver as one to look into. It would be quite high on the list of potential interesting markets. So if you enjoyed today's video, do not hesitate a single second to like and subscribe. Cheers.